She worked at the little cafe on the corner of the busy street. Every morning, she would arrive before the sun was fully awake, unlocking the doors and turning on the lights, setting everything in its place. The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air as she arranged cups and plates, polished the silverware, and straightened the chairs. She liked to make the cafe feel welcoming, not just for the customers but for herself. In her heart, this cafe was a small haven, a place where she could quietly exist and keep her little dreams tucked away from the world. She had grown up with music. Her childhood home had a piano in the corner of the living room, slightly worn, with keys that didn't always sound perfect. Still, she had spent hours sitting there, letting her fingers explore melodies that came from deep inside. Her parents had loved music, but life had been difficult, and they could not afford formal lessons for her. Still, she learned by listening, by copying what she heard on the radio, and by following the small sheet music she could borrow from neighbors or the library. The piano had been her escape, her private world where she could create beauty and forget the struggles of daily life. But life had other plans. When she became old enough to work, her family needed her income. The piano stayed silent most of the time, tucked in the corner, gathering dust. She moved on to waitressing, learning to serve tables with a smile, carry trays with precision, and remember each regular customer's favorite order. She liked to watch people, noticing the little things, a child's delighted face when they got the chocolate cake they had been dreaming of, the elderly man who always asked for extra sugar in his tea, the young couple who whispered in corners, their hands occasionally brushing over the table even though she had put her music aside. She never let the feeling of it leave her. When she cleaned the tables, she sometimes tapped a rhythm on the counter. When she poured coffee, her hands moved in gentle patterns that almost danced. At night, after everyone had gone home and the cafe was silent, she would hum little tunes to herself, letting her mind drift back to the piano in her childhood home. Those moments were private, fleeting, but they reminded her that she still carried the music inside her. She had a regular routine. The morning rush was always busy, with people grabbing their coffee on the way to work, some chatting with each other, some lost in their own world. She moved between tables with practiced ease, taking orders, serving drinks, and listening. The lunch crowd was quieter, with people sitting longer, eating and talking softly. In the evenings, the cafe would have a few more visitors, often those who wanted a calm place to read or work. And there were nights when the cafe was nearly empty, and she could let her mind wander freely. It was on one such ordinary evening that everything began to change. The cafe was quiet, just a few people sitting at scattered tables. She was clearing a plate when she noticed a man entering. He was different from the usual crowd, well-dressed, confident, and with an air that made people turn their heads slightly. He walked to a table in the corner, scanning the room with a sharp gaze. She felt a flutter of curiosity. He didn't order right away, just watched the cafe, observing the way she moved and served. She kept her attention on her work, pouring coffee, wiping tables, and moving with her usual rhythm. But she couldn't help noticing him. There was something about the way he seemed interested in the small details, the way he noticed her presence, that made her nervous. She had served countless people, but this one felt different. It was not just his wealth or appearance that caught her attention. It was the way he looked, as if he knew there was something more in her, something hidden beneath the ordinary exterior. As the evening went on, he called her over. Her heart beat a little faster. "I want to see you play," he said simply, pointing toward the small piano in the corner. She froze, unsure if he was joking. The piano had been there for years, used occasionally for background music, but she had never been asked to play in front of anyone. Her hands instinctively tightened on the tray she held. I don't," she began, feeling embarrassed and awkward. The thought of playing in front of strangers made her stomach twist. She had not performed publicly in years, not since she had left her piano at home. The idea of opening herself up in this way felt frightening. What if she wasn't good enough? What if her music no longer sounded like it did in her childhood dreams? He smiled, a gentle but commanding smile. "I think you'll surprise yourself," he said. "Just a few minutes. You don't have to be perfect. Just play." He seemed certain, confident in a way that made it hard to refuse. Her fingers brushed the edge of the piano keys, cold and smooth beneath her touch. She took a deep breath, trying to calm the nervous energy in her chest. Slowly, she sat down on the bench. At first, she let her hands hover above the keys, unsure. The cafe was quiet now, all eyes on her. The few remaining customers paused in their conversations, Sensing that something unusual was about to happen, she closed her eyes briefly, letting memories of past melodies come to her. She remembered the tunes she had played in secret, the songs that had kept her spirit alive when life had been hard. And then she pressed a single key. The note rang out, soft and clear. She began to play slowly at first, unsure of her own confidence. But as the notes flowed, something awakened inside her. The music that had been silent for years came rushing back. Her fingers found their old familiarity with the keys, moving naturally, almost as if they remembered more than her conscious mind did. She lost herself in the music, and for a moment, the cafe ceased to exist. There was only her, the piano, and the melody flowing through her fingers. The millionaire watched quietly, not saying a word, letting her discover her own strength. The customers began to lean forward, listening intently. The ordinary cafe transformed into a place of magic. Each note told a story, carrying emotions that words could not capture. There was joy, longing, sadness, and hope, all intertwined in a way that made hearts beat faster. She played not to impress anyone, not to seek attention, but because the music had waited inside her, ready to breathe life once more. Her cheeks were flushed, not from embarrassment, but from the thrill of reconnecting with a part of herself she thought she had lost. The piano responded to her touch, each note resonating with the feeling she poured into it. The customers could sense the sincerity, the hidden talent that had been kept in the shadows for so long. Even the millionaire seemed taken aback, realizing that he had stumbled upon something extraordinary. As the last note faded into the air, the cafe remained silent for a moment, as if no one wanted to break the spell. She slowly opened her eyes, looking around, feeling both exposed and exhilarated. The man in the corner smiled warmly, a silent acknowledgement of her courage and gift. She had not known that such a small act could transform the evening, could change how people saw her and perhaps how she saw herself. The ordinary world of the cafe had shifted. She was still a waitress, still moving between tables and clearing plates. But now there was a spark in her, a quiet confidence that had not been there before. The music inside her had been awakened, and she knew that nothing would ever feel entirely the same again. From that day on, every time she served coffee, cleared a table, or passed by the piano, she carried a piece of that magic with her. The cafe remained her home, but now it was also a stage, a place where her hidden talent could find light again. Life outside still demanded her attention, her work, and her responsibilities. But the music had returned, and she felt a renewed sense of hope, waiting for the moment when it would fully bloom once more. The next day, the cafe was busier than usual. The streets outside were crowded, cars honked, and the smell of fresh bread from the bakery across the street mixed with the rich aroma of coffee. She arrived early, just like every morning, but her mind was still on the night before. She could not shake the memory of the millionaire, his confident gaze, and the way he had encouraged her to play the piano. The sound of the notes she had played still echoed in her mind, and for the first time in years, she felt a spark of excitement about music. She moved around the cafe, serving customers, pouring coffee, and clearing tables. But her thoughts kept returning to the piano. She wondered if she would ever have the courage to play in front of people again. The thought made her heart race, a mixture of fear and anticipation. She had been a waitress all her life, performing small acts of kindness and service. But now there was a possibility of something bigger, something that could change her life. The lunch crowd was particularly busy that day. Office workers came in for quick meals, some in suits, some in casual clothes. Everyone had their routines, and she knew them all by heart. She moved with practiced ease, taking orders, balancing plates, and remembering who liked extra sugar, who liked their coffee black. But she kept glancing at the piano in the corner, imagining how it would feel to sit there again and let her fingers move freely across the keys. As the day went on, she noticed something strange. People seemed to be looking at her differently. Some whispered to each other, pointing discreetly in her direction. A few of the regulars gave her curious smiles. It was as if word had spread about her playing the night before. She felt a mixture of embarrassment and pride. She was not used to attention, especially not for something so personal and hidden. By the afternoon, the cafe had quieted down. The rush had passed, and there were only a few customers left. She was wiping down the tables when the bell above the door jingled, signaling another visitor. She looked up and saw the millionaire from the previous evening walking in. His presence immediately drew her attention. He walked with the same confident air, scanning the cafe as if he were looking for her. He approached her table, smiling warmly. "I hope I'm not interrupting," he said. I just wanted to see you again." She felt her face flush. She had not expected to see him so soon. "No, not at all," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "Can I get you anything? Coffee, tea, something to eat?" He shook his head, still smiling, and gestured toward the piano. "I wanted to ask you something," he said. "Would you play again? Just for a few minutes. I promise everyone will enjoy it." Her heart skipped a beat. The thought of playing in front of him again was both thrilling and terrifying. She hesitated, her fingers brushing against the edge of the counter. She remembered the way she had felt the night before, the fear, the excitement, and then the incredible joy of losing herself in the music. Could she do it again? Could she face the eyes of the crowd and let them hear what she had kept hidden for so long? She took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. Slowly, she nodded. "Okay," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'll play." The millionaire's smile widened. He stepped aside, giving her space to approach the piano. The remaining customers had noticed the interaction and were watching curiously. She walked toward the instrument, each step feeling heavier with anticipation. Her fingers hovered over the keys, remembering the feeling from the night before. The first note rang out, soft and tentative, but as soon as she played, she felt the music flow through her again. The fear melted away, replaced by a sense of purpose and exhilaration. She began to play, slowly at first, testing the waters. The melody she created was gentle, sweet, and familiar, yet it had a new depth to it. She allowed herself to get lost in the rhythm, her hands moving with confidence and grace. The cafe fell silent, the only sound being the notes she produced. Customers leaned forward, drawn into the music, captivated by the beauty of what they were hearing. The millionaire watched intently, his expression a mix of admiration and surprise. He had known she had talent, but he had not expected this level of brilliance. As she continued, the melody grew more complex. Her fingers danced across the keys, moving with precision and emotion. She could feel the energy of the cafe shifting, the atmosphere charged with anticipation. Each note told a story, carrying feelings that words could not express. She was no longer just a waitress. She was a musician, sharing a piece of her soul with everyone in the room. She had found her voice again, and it was more powerful than she had imagined. The customers were mesmerized. Some closed their eyes, letting the music wash over them. Others whispered to each other, unable to believe what they were hearing. The cafe, once a place of ordinary routines and casual chatter, had transformed into a space of magic and wonder. The millionaire leaned forward, clearly impressed. He had seen talent before, but this was something extraordinary. She was not just playing notes. She was creating an experience, a memory that would stay with everyone present. As the final notes lingered in the air, the cafe remained silent for a moment. No one wanted to break the spell. She slowly opened her eyes, feeling a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. The man in the corner clapped softly, encouragingly. The other customers followed, their applause growing louder and more enthusiastic. She smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment she had not felt in years. The fear that had gripped her moments ago was gone, replaced by a newfound confidence. The millionaire approached her once more. "You have an incredible gift," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. "I'm glad I asked you to play again. You have no idea how much this has touched everyone here." She nodded, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. She had shared something deeply personal, and it had been received with appreciation and awe. It was a moment she would never forget. For the rest of the day, she moved around the cafe with a new sense of purpose. Every smile from a customer, every compliment, felt different. She knew that her life was changing, that something significant had begun. The piano was no longer just a piece of furniture in the corner. It was a gateway to a future she had longed for, a future where her talent could finally be seen and appreciated. As the evening approached, she found herself thinking about the possibilities, invitations to play, opportunities to learn, and the chance to explore her music in ways she had only dreamed of before. The thought was both exciting and overwhelming, but she welcomed it. She realized that the ordinary life she had known, while safe and familiar, was no longer enough. The music inside her demanded to be heard, and she was ready to listen and respond that night. As she locked the doors and turned off the lights, she felt a sense of calm and anticipation. She had taken a step into the unknown, and it had felt exhilarating. The piano, the music, and the encouragement from the millionaire had opened a door she had long kept closed. She knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new experiences, and new moments to share her gift. But for now, she allowed herself to dream, to imagine a life where her music could touch hearts, inspire, and create joy. She walked home under the city lights, feeling the rhythm of her own heartbeat in time with the melodies in her mind. The ordinary streets, the familiar buildings, all seemed different somehow, filled with potential and promise. She was no longer just a waitress at a cafe. She was a musician, a dreamer, and a creator. And with that realization, she felt a quiet excitement for the journey that lay ahead, ready to embrace every note, every melody, and every opportunity that awaited her. Days passed since that evening, and the cafe seemed different now. The atmosphere carried a subtle change, almost as if the walls themselves had become aware of something special that had taken place within them. Customers began to notice the piano more, some stopping to glance at it, their curiosity sparked by stories they had heard or glimpsed of her playing. She moved through her routine, serving coffee and clearing tables, but every so often her eyes would drift toward the instrument, her fingers itching to touch the keys. She had started to notice the subtle looks of admiration from the people around her. The regulars seemed to watch her with new respect, not just for her skill at serving tables, but for something deeper that had emerged. There was a quiet sense of expectation, almost like the cafe itself was waiting for her to play again. She could feel it, a gentle pressure, encouraging her to explore the gift that had been hidden for so long. One afternoon, while she was taking orders and balancing a tray full of drinks, she noticed the millionaire standing at the entrance again. He had become a familiar presence, not frequent, but timely, appearing when it mattered most. His eyes met hers, a silent challenge, a reminder of the night that had changed everything. He did not speak at first, just watched her move with ease and confidence. Yet there was an unspoken question in his gaze. Would she play again? The cafe had a special moment that day when a young couple walked in, clearly curious, whispering excitedly about the music they had heard the night before. She felt a rush of nerves and excitement. Could she recapture that magic, that spellbinding effect that had silenced everyone before? She set down her tray and approached the piano, her hands trembling slightly. The room quieted, as if everyone sensed that something important was about to happen. She pressed a key, and the familiar, comforting sound filled the room. Her fingers began to move, slowly at first, finding the rhythm that had been in her heart for years. Then the melody grew richer, more complex, and soon she was playing with a freedom that surprised even herself. It was as if the piano remembered her touch, guiding her hands through notes she had not played in years. The music flowed effortlessly, carrying emotions she had kept hidden, telling a story without words. The customers were captivated. Some leaned forward in their seats, their eyes wide with wonder. Others closed their eyes, letting the music wrap around them like a gentle embrace. The millionaire watched with a mix of pride and astonishment. He had known she had talent, but seeing it unfold again, more powerful than ever, left him momentarily speechless. He understood that he was witnessing something rare, a brilliance that had been waiting patiently to be discovered. She played not for recognition, not for applause, but because the music demanded to be expressed. Each note was a piece of her story, a fragment of the dreams she had carried in secret for so long. The cafe, once ordinary and routine, had transformed into a concert hall filled with emotion. People who had come in for coffee and sandwiches were now experiencing something extraordinary, a glimpse into a world they had never known existed within the walls of their everyday lives. Her heart raced as she continued, but the fear that had gripped her earlier had vanished. She was no longer just a waitress. She was a storyteller, using the piano as her voice. The melodies flowed like a river, rising and falling, sometimes soft and gentle, sometimes bold and passionate. She could feel the energy of the room, the way the audience was holding their breath, and it fueled her playing. Every note became a conversation, every chord a message that resonated deeply with those listening. The millionaire's presence was both a comfort and a challenge. He did not interrupt, did not offer direction. He simply watched, letting her discover her own strength. His silent encouragement was enough to push her further, to explore the depths of her talent in a way she had never dared before. She began to take risks, experimenting with tempo and tone, weaving in melodies that had been hidden in the corners of her memory. The music became alive, unpredictable, and beautiful. As she played, she caught glimpses of the audience's reactions. There was wonder in their eyes, amazement in the soft gasps, and quiet joy in the smiles that spread across their faces. Some were moved to tears, their emotions stirred by the honesty and purity of her music. It was a moment of connection, of shared humanity, where the ordinary world outside ceased to exist. and everyone was drawn into the same emotional journey. The final notes lingered in the air, delicate and fading, like the last light of a sunset. The cafe remained silent for a heartbeat, as if no one wanted to break the spell. Then, slowly, the applause began. It started as a few soft claps, then grew into a wave of appreciation, filling the room with warmth and admiration. She smiled, feeling a mixture of relief, pride, and exhilaration. The music had once again spoken for her, and the audience had listened, understood, and felt. The millionaire approached her after the applause died down. His eyes shone with genuine admiration. "That was incredible," he said quietly. "You have something very special. Don't ever doubt it again." She nodded, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. The encouragement, the acknowledgement, the recognition, it was more than she had expected, more than she had allowed herself to imagine. She realized that this was just the beginning, that her talent was no longer something she kept hidden but something she could share, explore, and grow. For the rest of the day, she moved through the cafe with a new sense of confidence. Every smile from a customer, every small conversation, felt different. She was no longer just serving coffee and food. She was carrying a presence, a quiet strength that came from embracing her gift. The piano, once just an instrument in the corner, had become a symbol of possibility, a bridge between her ordinary life and the extraordinary potential within her. As the evening settled in and the last customers left, she sat at the piano alone for a moment, letting her fingers dance lightly over the keys. She did not play a full piece, just small notes and melodies, savoring the sound, remembering the feeling of connection and wonder from earlier. The music had awakened something inside her, a sense of purpose and excitement that could not be ignored. Walking home under the city lights, she felt a rhythm in her step that matched the melodies still echoing in her mind. The streets, the buildings, the familiar corners of her neighborhood, they all seemed transformed, filled with possibility and promise. She knew that life would continue to have its challenges, but for the first time in years, she felt ready to face them, with the music inside her as a guide and companion. She was no longer just a waitress at a cafe. She was a musician, a storyteller, and a dreamer, and she could not wait to see where her talent would take her next. The following days brought a wave of change to the little cafe, a quiet shift that did not go unnoticed. The news of her talent had started to spread, first through whispers and curious glances, then through conversations that carried her story beyond the cafe walls. People from nearby offices and streets began to visit, eager to catch a glimpse of the waitress who could make the piano sing like no one had ever heard before. Some came with cameras, some with notebooks, and some simply with a desire to witness something extraordinary. In the middle of their ordinary lives, she continued her routine, serving coffee, clearing tables, and attending to the customers. But now there was a different energy around her. People watched her with anticipation, waiting for the moment when she would move toward the piano. She could feel their curiosity, their quiet expectation pressing against her. But instead of fear, it sparked something inside her, a gentle determination to embrace what had been awakened within her. One afternoon, during a lull in the cafe, the millionaire returned once more. He had become a familiar presence, not frequent, but significant. His arrival seemed to carry a quiet energy that changed the room. She noticed the way people instinctively turned to look, sensing that something important was about to happen. He approached her table with a calm smile. "I thought you might be ready for more today," he said. She felt a flutter of nervous excitement. Today felt different. Today felt like more than just a casual performance. She followed him to the piano, feeling the weight of the moment, but also a strange sense of ease. Her fingers hovered over the keys for a moment, remembering the first time she had played in front of an audience. The music that had been dormant for years surged forward, eager to be expressed. She pressed the first note, soft but clear, and the room seemed to shift, as if the very air had been waiting for her to speak through the piano. The melody began gently, a soft and inviting sound that drew everyone's attention. She let herself be guided by the rhythm in her heart, the memory of melodies she had played countless times in secret. Slowly, the music grew richer, more intricate. Each note carried emotion, telling a story that words could not convey. The customers were captivated, some leaning forward, some closing their eyes, completely immersed in the experience. The cafe, once a place of ordinary routines and casual chatter, had become a stage for something magical and unforgettable. As she played, she felt a deep connection with the people in the room. Each note seemed to reach them individually, stirring memories, emotions, and dreams. Some smiled softly, moved by the beauty of the music. Others were silent, tears forming in their eyes as the melodies touched them in ways they could not explain. Even the regulars who had watched her for years were caught off guard, seeing a side of her they had never imagined. She realized that the music had the power to transform the ordinary into the extraordinary, to create moments that people would carry with them long after they had left the cafe. The millionaire watched quietly, allowing her to explore the depths of her talent without interruption. His presence was a silent support, a reminder that she was not alone in this journey. He had seen something in her that she had hidden even from herself, and now he watched with pride as she revealed it to the world. There was a moment when their eyes met, and he nodded slightly, a gesture that encouraged her to continue, to go further than she had ever dared. The melody grew bolder, more expressive. She experimented with tempo and tone, weaving complex harmonies and soft whispers of sound that seemed to float through the air. The music became a living, breathing entity, shifting with her emotions and responding to the reactions of the audience. The cafe was completely silent except for the piano, yet every sound seemed amplified by the intensity of the moment. People were no longer mere spectators. They were participants in the story she was telling through her fingers. As the performance reached its peak, she felt a surge of exhilaration and freedom. She was no longer bound by fear or doubt. The music carried her beyond the limits she had placed on herself, allowing her to explore her talent fully and fearlessly. Every note was an expression of her journey, her struggles, her dreams, and her triumphs. The audience was swept along, carried by the power of the music and the sincerity of her expression. It was a moment of pure connection, a shared experience that transcended words and touched hearts. When the final notes lingered and faded into silence, the cafe remained still for a heartbeat, as if everyone was holding their breath. Then, slowly, applause erupted, growing louder and louder, filling the room with warmth and admiration. She smiled, feeling a sense of fulfillment and joy that went beyond words. The music had spoken for her, and the audience had listened, understood, and felt. It was a powerful reminder that her talent was not just a hidden skill, but a gift that could touch and inspire others. The millionaire approached her, his eyes shining with genuine admiration. "That was remarkable," he said softly. "You have a rare gift, and you should never doubt it again. What you just shared with everyone here is extraordinary." She nodded, feeling a mix of pride and humility. The recognition, the validation, and the encouragement were more than she had ever expected. It was a turning point, a moment when she realized that her life could be different, that her music could reach beyond the walls of the cafe and touch the hearts of many. For the rest of the day, she moved through the cafe with a new sense of confidence. Every smile, every comment, every glance from the customers felt different. She was no longer just a waitress. She was a musician, a storyteller, and a creator. The piano had become a symbol of possibility, a bridge between her ordinary life and the extraordinary potential within her. She knew that opportunities would come, challenges would arise, and new experiences awaited. But she felt ready to embrace them all. As the evening settled and the last customers left, she sat at the piano for a few moments alone. Her fingers danced lightly over the keys, savoring the sound, reliving the performance, and imagining the possibilities that lay ahead. The music had awakened something inside her, a sense of purpose, excitement, and hope that could not be ignored. She understood that this was only the beginning, that her journey was just starting, and that the piano would continue to guide her toward the life she had always dreamed of. Walking home under the city lights, she felt a rhythm in her step that matched the melodies in her mind. The streets, buildings, and familiar corners of her neighborhood seemed alive with potential and promise. She was no longer just a waitress at a cafe. She was a musician, a dreamer, and a storyteller. And with that realization, she felt a quiet excitement for the journey that lay ahead, ready to embrace every note, every melody, and every opportunity that awaited her. The following week brought a wave of excitement and change into the little cafe, a ripple that extended far beyond its doors. People who had heard about her talent flocked from different parts of the city. Some had seen her on social media, shared videos, and articles from the night of her first performance that had gone viral. Others came simply because they had heard whispers of the waitress, who could make a piano sing with a beauty they had never imagined. The cafe was alive with energy, bustling with anticipation, as everyone hoped to catch a glimpse of the young woman whose talent had captured hearts. She arrived that morning with a sense of calm determination. Gone were the jitters that had once accompanied her to the piano. She had learned that her music was not just about performing, but about connecting with the people who listened. Each note she played carried a part of her story, her struggles, her dreams, and her courage. The piano had become an extension of herself, a voice that could speak louder than words ever could. As she moved through the cafe, serving coffee and taking orders, she noticed the way people watched her. There was curiosity, yes, but also respect and admiration. She could feel the energy in the room, the silent anticipation building toward the moment she would sit at the piano. It was different from before. This was no longer a quiet performance for a few intrigued onlookers. This was a stage set by fate itself, and she was ready to embrace it. In the early afternoon, the millionaire arrived, his presence a familiar anchor in the whirlwind of attention. He approached her with a gentle smile. "Are you ready?" he asked. She nodded, a small smile forming on her lips. "Yes," she replied, her voice steady, carrying the quiet confidence she had cultivated over the past days. The piano stood in the corner, waiting patiently as she approached, her fingers brushing against the keys, feeling their smooth surface, and the echoes of the notes she had played before. She pressed a key, and the first note rang out, soft and inviting. Her fingers moved with grace and precision, finding the rhythm that had become second nature. The melody grew, flowing effortlessly from her hands, filling the room with a richness and warmth that captivated everyone present. Customers paused, their conversations dying away as they were drawn into the music. The cafe had transformed. Every ordinary object and familiar corner now part of a stage for something extraordinary. The audience was completely absorbed. Some closed their eyes, letting the music wash over them, feeling the emotions that she poured into each note. Others leaned forward, their expressions a mix of awe and wonder. The regulars who had watched her for years were astonished at the depth and beauty of her performance. The music was not just sound, it was a story, a journey that carried them all along, touching something deep inside each listener. The millionaire watched quietly, giving her space to explore and express herself. His encouragement was a silent support, a reminder that she was capable of greatness. He had discovered her talent when she had been hesitant, and now he witnessed the full extent of it, understanding that he had stumbled upon something rare and remarkable. His admiration was genuine, and he knew that her gift could reach far beyond the walls of the cafe. She played with a freedom and passion that seemed to grow with every note. The music swelled and softened, rising to crescendos that filled the room with energy and emotion. Her fingers moved almost instinctively, guided by years of hidden practice and the innate understanding of her own talent. She experimented with melody and rhythm, weaving together complex harmonies that seemed to breathe life into the cafe itself. Every note was alive, resonating with the audience and creating a shared experience that would not be forgotten. As the performance continued, she noticed the subtle reactions of the listeners. Some were moved to tears, touched by the sincerity and beauty of the music. Others smiled softly, experiencing a quiet joy that spread warmth through their hearts. She felt a deep connection with them, a shared understanding that transcended words. The music had created a bridge between her and the audience, a moment of unity and emotion that was both powerful and fragile. The final piece of her performance was delicate and hauntingly beautiful. She played slowly, letting each note linger in the air, savoring the feeling of completion and connection. The audience was silent, holding their breath, fully immersed in the moment. When the last note faded, a wave of applause erupted, filling the cafe with warmth and admiration. She smiled, feeling a sense of fulfillment and joy that went beyond anything she had experienced before. The music had spoken for her, and the audience had listened, understood, and felt. After the applause, the millionaire approached her once more. "That was incredible," he said softly, his voice filled with genuine admiration. "You have a rare and extraordinary gift. Don't ever doubt it again." She nodded, a quiet smile forming on her lips. The validation, the recognition, and the encouragement were more than she had ever expected. She realized that her life had changed, that opportunities awaited her, and that the music within her had the power to reach far beyond the cafe. In the days and weeks that followed, her life transformed in ways she had never imagined. Invitations to perform at events, concerts, and private gatherings poured in. She met other musicians, mentors, and enthusiasts who recognized her talent and offered guidance and support. Yet, despite the sudden attention and opportunities, she remained grounded, humble, and focused on her music. The cafe, the place where her talent had first been truly seen, remained her home, a reminder of her roots and the journey she had undertaken. She continued to play at the cafe, often sharing her music spontaneously with the patrons who came in, creating moments of joy and wonder. Her talent was no longer hidden, no longer a secret confined to quiet rooms or private practice. It was shared, celebrated, and appreciated. And through it all, she carried herself with grace and humility, knowing that the true power of her music was not in the applause or recognition, but in the emotions it could awaken and the connections it could create. Walking home one evening, under the glow of the city lights, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment and excitement for the future. The streets, the buildings, the familiar corners of her neighborhood all seemed alive with possibility. She was no longer just a waitress at a cafe. She was a musician, a dreamer, and a storyteller. The piano had given her a voice, a path, and a purpose that she could embrace fully. She knew that challenges would come, that there would be moments of doubt and uncertainty, but she also knew that the music inside her was stronger than any obstacle. Her journey had begun with a single step, a moment of courage when she chose to play the piano despite her fear and uncertainty. From that moment, her life had changed, unfolding in ways she could not have predicted. She had discovered the power of her talent, the importance of embracing her gifts, and the joy of sharing them with others. And as she looked toward the future, she knew that her music would continue to guide her, inspire her, and connect her with the world in ways she had only begun to imagine. The piano, once a forgotten instrument in the corner of a cafe, had become a symbol of possibility and hope. It reminded her that extraordinary talent can be found in the most unexpected places, that dreams can be realized even in the face of obstacles, and that a single act of courage can change a life forever. She carried this knowledge in her heart as she continued to play, to dream, and to share her gift with the world, knowing that the journey had only just begun, and that the music would continue to speak for her, now and always.